Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. So there may be a few people popping on as we get going, and that's quite all right too. So thanks so much for joining us. We have now our seventh, seventh Behavior Helper virtual professional development. So we're glad you're joining us to talk about the power of choice. Just a couple of housekeeping things that we go over every time. Make sure if you want Act 48 credits, you are registered in Frontline. We will take attendance at the completion of the meeting, so just make sure to stay for the entirety. And we are recording this, so it will be uploaded to the Padlet whenever we are finished, either later today or tomorrow. And then at the end, we will have a survey and some time for you to ask questions and be entered for a chance to win a prize in May. That's coming up here real quick too.
Yeah, we're in the home stretch.
I know it.
So our objectives for today are the why behind providing students with choices. What is the major takeaway from today? Number two is ways to provide choices throughout the school day. We'll start with sort of the beginning of our day and work through some scenarios or some actual situations where you could provide choices in an easy way for your students. And then we'll also explore how choice relates to our previous PD sessions, and we'll kind of put a little, oh, remember when we talked about that from previous PD slides? So the first thing we're going to talk about is the why of giving choices. A lot of our choices should be teacher driven, as we have in that first little bullet there. But it's giving the students the illusion of control. We'll talk about, we as adults have choices about so many things, but giving the students that choice, or even, if we're doing math, for example, are you doing the odds or the evens? You're still completing that math assignment that we want them to control, but they have that illusion of control. Well, I'm just going to do the odds. I mean, I don't have to do a whole slew of problems. It builds relationships. It increases students' confidence. It gives them a feeling of autonomy and ownership in their learning. It increases engagement. We know that if students are not engaged in their learning, or even if they're bored, that's one of the major components of an increase in disruptive behaviors. We'll get into that in a couple slides here. It decreases those problem behaviors and it improves academic outcomes. It increases that student's motivation. If they have a say in their assignments, or if they have a say in a project that they're doing, they're going to have more buy-in. They're going to just be more engaged, and their academic outcomes will increase. And then think about the students who are defiant, who are getting into power struggles, or wanting to be in control. Maybe they have diagnoses that we see. It's always fighting that power struggle all the time. So this is just giving them an opportunity to have that control back, and making our day a little bit easier.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Jake. And as he was talking about some of that autonomy and ownership, I mean, let's think about ourselves, right? I mean, we're driving to work and we're like, man, I didn't have time for my coffee. And you see there is no line at the Dunkin' Donuts. And you're like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to do that today. I mean, you're like, I could do the Dunkin', or like, I could probably wait for like literally like 15 cars. I mean, does anybody have time? Like, I'm wondering who has time to wait 15 cars deep at Starbucks? It's not me. I mean, I don't know if you all get up early enough to do it, but it's not me. I'll do like the quick, like, oh, you know what? I'm just going to do it on the app. It's done in literally 2 minutes. I'm going to go to Dunkin', but we have the choice. We have the autonomy in our morning to do that. Another thing is when you're driving to work, maybe you want to go and like listen to a podcast. Maybe you're like, oh, like I really want to listen to this, I don't know, like real life story or something that's going on. You're like into the podcast. Maybe you're like jamming out on your way to work, like getting your day started in a good way. You're like, all right, I need to pump myself up because this is like, I know what's happening today. So you're pumping yourself up, or maybe you just want to sit in silence. Sometimes at the end of the day, I just want to drive home with nobody, like with like nothing, like nothingness. But again, we have the autonomy to do that. We can choose how we are, what we are listening to or not listening to within the car. And then here we go, our planning period. I mean, how many things can one person get done in a planning period, right? But again, we have the choice of what we do. Mine was always spent like tucked away in my room. I locked the door. I turned out the lights. I was like, don't anybody bother me. I want to get all my stuff done and work on that like never ending to-do list. But we have a choice of what we're going to do. Maybe we're going to say, or like, I guess during our lunchtime. So maybe we're going to plan during our lunch. Maybe we're going to say like, you know what, I need a little bit of like sunshine. I need some vitamin D. I'm going to go out around the building for a walk. Maybe I'm going to listen to something. I'm going to like put in some music or listen to that podcast during my lunchtime. Maybe I'll sit with a group of people and just like chat or problem solve. Maybe I'm at the copier probs, right? Like we spend our time like, I'm gonna make these copies real quick, and then you end up like the stapler jams. Like your time is now gone, and you're like spending your time now, like not not your choice, fixing the staples. I mean, these are real life things that happen to us. Still, we have the choice in our day of what we're deciding to do. Oh, we have a poll. We did this. All right. So if we're thinking about, okay, let me see. Hold on. Stay with me. Choice is poll number 1. Okay, all right. Here's a question for you. It should launch. So what opportunities for choice do your students have in the day? So think about some of those things. I mean, and we're going to get into some more specifics, but what's something that your students have a choice for during their day? There's not a wrong answer. Okay, well, these are coming up. I'm going to just continue on. I'll take a look at these in just a moment. Okay, so when we're talking about choice, like Jake had said, is really important for engagement. So if students are engaged, they are less likely to engage in the problematic behavior. Let's say, for example, they dislike writing, but they enjoy drawing. So they could use their skills to create. I know, like, my son is one of those kids. He can write, it's fine. But if he has an opportunity to create some sort of like graphic novel comic thing, like he is all in because there's that drawing component for him. So if he has the opportunity to do that as an assignment, I guarantee he'd pick that. We could still incorporate the writing component, but if that's an option, he's going for it. And like Jake said too, boredom is considered one of the leading contributors to the disruptive and attention-seeking behavior in the classroom. So really allowing them to have that autonomy over like, how are they going to do an assignment? Now, granted, I guess I say this with caution and saying not everything needs to be a choice, because there are certainly things that students they have to do certain assignments. But whenever the opportunity presents itself, we can certainly provide those choices to get some more buy-in from our students. So for example, let's say we have like a lesson that we're working on, and we've got a textbook, we're in history class or social studies, and we're reading about Niagara Falls. Okay. We certainly could go through and we can read the text and we can read about the facts about Niagara Falls, how much water falls over, the Horseshoe Falls, every minute. We can just read through and do that. How could we provide some engagement in there? When Jake and I were prepping for this, we were talking about it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I would totally we could do a poll with the class. Who has been there? What did you see? What did you notice? What did you hear? What did it smell like? What was the population like? Were there people there? Oh my gosh, there's all kinds of people that go there. We could put on a video for the students to really increase that engagement, to see the power of Niagara Falls. Some of our students don't have the opportunity to travel or go places, and this is a really great opportunity for them to really see this in action without visiting that physical location. We could tie in some math skills, talk about like how many gallons of water would actually fall over there. What does that look like? We could get a milk jug and kind of like talk through some of that. So that would be, there are some really good ways in which we could, sorry, you guys. Hold on. Provide some engaging strategies for our students. See, I was trying to look at the poll and did all the things. Okay. All right. I think I got all that, Jake. All right.
All right, moving on. In relation to some of the previous PD that we've talked about, just giving choice provides that positive relationships. I think we've kind of talked about it a lot already, but just some of the main points we want to talk about before we get into like the schedule of our day, the meat and potatoes, if you will. Students feel respected and understood. We're not just like giving them directives, and they just have that power and that understanding, like, oh, okay, well, Mr. Graham's going to give me this choice of how we're going to start our morning work today. Like, I'm cool with that. So maybe they'll just be, a little bit more willing to give I don't know, just be more flexible with us as well. increase meaningful conversations. Like just like think about how you feel when someone asks about something of your interest. Like going back to that Niagara Falls, like, oh my gosh, like we can for this project, we can either, do like a trifold project or you could draw something. And imagine just an artistic student really just taking that time to draw a picture of Niagara Falls and being like, holy cow, do you see how amazingly awesome Dawn illustrated Niagara Falls? So we're gonna hang this up in our classroom, and it's gonna be like, oh wow, that's powerful. Like you're showcasing a talent that a student has had. And again, that's just a simplified, Niagara Falls. I think we're just gonna use that theme from here on out for the rest of the day since we've talked about it for two slides in a row. It also reduces conflict and power struggles with those non-preferred task demands. It gives them options. It gives them that opportunity. It might even build their confidence. They feel capable when they complete tasks that the student chooses to do. So without further ado, let's kind of start our day with the next slide. So Amanda and I sort of like broke down the day. We've both been in the classroom before. And the first thing, obviously, we do, the students come in, we greet them, we give them their fist bump, we give them their high five. Good morning. How's everybody doing? Amy, how you doing? So what are some of the things that we could provide choice for morning work? So the first thing is going to be, we have like a worksheet, A or B. Sometimes we do worksheets, sometimes we do soft starts with bins, but you can see here with those the first worksheet is just subtracting two-digit, it's subtracting two-digit, and then the second one, sorry, I need my readers apparently, it's subtracting three-digit
Your old
numbers.
eyes, it's
Old
fine.
eyes, sorry, it's my old eyes. Let me get the bifocals in here. So maybe we'll do that one day. Another day maybe we'll do soft start bins. So I'm gonna hit the pause button right there. I love these tubs, maybe one day it's like manipulatives and another day it's just a different variety of maybe it's sensory toys, etc. I'm just gonna hit the pause button because going back to a previous PD, we definitely want to ensure that we go over the procedures and the routines of those bins, whether it's, clean up, how we're gonna do it, where we're going to do it, and really make sure the students know how to use um the bins or whatever that morning work might be. That way, total chaos doesn't ensue within the classroom. There's Play-Doh being thrown everywhere, math teddy bears, math manipulatives everywhere. So really make sure we're teaching the students how we're going to do each piece of the morning work if we're going to give them those choices. Last thing that also ties it into a previous PD and that report piece that we've talked about, maybe the students have a journal prompt question. We've talked about the first five. It's a fantastic resource for, just developing that rapport with students. And part of the resources that the first five provides you with are questions. You can see here, just some of the questions were, what is something that annoys you? What is something that gives you hope? Would you rather be smart, funny, or heroic? Maybe one day you will do a journal prompt and the students will sit down, they'll write in a notebook. Maybe another day you'll just sit down as a classroom and just really talk about how can you make someone feel important, and just take that and really just sort of build as like a character ed little lesson at morning meeting. So again, this is just giving a huge variety of choices for the students to start their day in a positive manner that gives them some sort of control.
Another part of this would be flexible seating. Maybe some of you have flexible seating options in your classroom, and certainly there are a variety of things to choose from. Maybe you have a beanbag, and that is a place where students would have a choice to go, maybe during silent reading time or when they have an independent task to do. That could be an option. Maybe you have some of those wigglers in the classroom, and you've taught them how to use the wiggle seats. They can kind of sit there and kind of move and groove. Have seen these being used actually as these rolly things, so just again, kind of going back to making sure the students are aware of how they're being used. And they certainly wouldn't be good for, for all students. I've had students in the past who they work very well for, and others it just, it's too distracting for them. So it doesn't always work. There's another option here. We have a little choice board for you. And it's just different options of places that a student could do their work. Maybe it is at their desk. And certainly, like I said before, there are times when they need to sit at their desk and attend to the instruction at hand. But maybe there are other times when they have the option to maybe sit at a group table with a friend or on the rug. Can they stand to do their work? Is it really disruptive if they're standing? Some of those kids that have the wiggles, standing can be really helpful. Maybe they're by the board or in that comfy chair like a beanbag. So having some of those options at certain times of the day could be helpful too in providing some choices.
So as far as academic classes go, we have a slew of choices that we can give a student. We can read what I'm working on, who I'm working with, where I'm working, what writing utensils, etc. Ironically, I observed a music class. I pushed in with one of my students yesterday at a school where I support, and it was one of the most engaging lessons I've ever honestly observed. So I'll just sort of start from the beginning. The teacher started with her dog. She has a corgi, and she asked the students, "Hey, do you want to open this lesson with Lexi at Moraine or Lexi at home?" And the students did a thumbs up, thumbs down. Or, like, we're talking about given choices. We're talking about rapport building. We're talking about opportunities to respond. I'm like, "Did you attend our PDs?" Like, yes, yes, music teacher, you are. Woo! Here we go, Amanda. So from there, they talked about Lexi, Moraine, et cetera, et cetera. So then the task at hand was to do a recorder testing. And, sometimes third grade recorder got some nerves going on, but the students were allowed to test in either, I'm probably going to butcher this, so don't tell this teacher, Claire de la Lune or Go to Sleep. So those are the two songs that they could test on. So again, giving them the choice. What song? Maybe you're better at one song and not so much the other. The next thing they were able to give the choice of was you were going to pick your partner. So, am I going to go with my best friend? We might mess around. We might do that squeak, and we'll start laughing. Might not do so great on our on our recorder testing, but again, that's another choice that they were given, and sort of free reign of what we're going to do for this recorder testing. From there, they were given the opportunity where to practice. Amanda just talked about that. Some were sitting at their desks together. Some were sitting on the floor together. Some were sitting like in, not that their desks made like a cave, but their desks like sort of were those ones that you fold over and back. So they made like a little like recorder cave. Piggybacking onto that, she had carpet squares for them. I was just like, oh my gosh, the choices are like they're endless. This is amazing. And then the last thing that I really loved were the students could sign up where to test. She had numbers 1 through 16 on the board. And once you were done, you could come up as a group and decide, okay, Amanda and I are ready, but I think I want to go like fourth. I want to see a couple groups sort of test, see how they're doing. And you were able to sign up. And again, like all of these things that we just talked about, and I sort of like one off the cuff there as far as academic classes, but how amazing and how many choices were those students given? There wasn't a peep. Every single student was sitting with their partner. Every single student they had, oh, another choice they had, they could look in their books that they had, their recorder books, or she had like the little cheat sheet version up on the board. So those students were so engaged. There were absolutely no disruptive behaviors. It was A++ from the behavior coaches. Well, at least this behavior coach. So, and tangent
I
choices
love
for
that real
them.
life example though, Jake. I mean, just the way in which it doesn't have to be like really drawn out, just like
Yeah.
providing some of those choices. But it seems like this teacher kind of did think it out as far as like, giving the students opportunities to practice in certain spots and sign up for things. But that's
Yeah.
pretty cool to hear about, how many were offered in that class and how well it went.
It was fantastic. And I asked for never mind. I was gonna say I asked if I could talk about Lexi, and she gave me permission to name drop Lexi. So credit is due.
So we do have this listed on the Padlet. You can see like our little Padlet symbol over here. This is on the Padlet. This is from Sasha Long. She is the autism helper. She's actually really phenomenal. She has lots of videos and stuff on YouTube and a lot of free resources that she has on her website. So you don't have to be working with a student for autism to be using these visuals. They can be helpful for all of our students. Our next part here, this is actually a choice board. So I know we talked a little bit about project-based learning for our students, and this is actually a little choice of how students can demonstrate their learning or understanding of content taught. So let's go back. We're just going to skip back to the Niagara Falls lesson that I was talking about. So once we've learned about Niagara Falls, the students have all of this information, and now I want them to produce something to tell me what they've learned. We could take a test. Certainly we could do that, but maybe we're working on something a little bit more. Could they prepare some sort of TED Talk of sorts to give to their class? Maybe it's a 2-minute presentation where they have to speak in front of their class and share certain details about Niagara Falls. And we would have to outline, certainly we'd have to outline all of this information, maybe have a rubric of sorts. So it could take a little bit of work on the back end, but it could really be beneficial for our students in the long run. Maybe they're creating an animated movie to inform others about Niagara Falls. We put something in the Padlet. It's called Animaker. I've actually used this in the past. It's where students can create a little avatar that looks like themselves, and they can kind of customize this project and create their own slides and have this little person like talking through different things. And it's really cool. They can set it to music also, and they could kind of illustrate that, or they could have words on that. So that's just like a fun way to differentiate and to give them access to a different way of demonstrating their learning. Maybe they're, like Jake said, he was like building a model. Maybe they're building a model in a shoebox or something of Niagara Falls, and they would have to have certain details or criteria in that to model Niagara Falls. Maybe they're creating a poster, some sort of visual about the topic. Maybe they have a slideshow, like we were just talking about. Maybe they're using Google Slides, like to put together a slideshow. Maybe they're doing something in Canva, and that could be something really fun. Canva is actually free for educators. I don't get a stipend for that, but it is free, super cool. You can create your own classroom and like invite students to it, so you can kind of like see what's going on in that. But can't we love Canva. You can do all kinds of stuff besides presentations. You can do like, invites and, things like that. So another thing is they could maybe write a children's book. Like, would that be something students would be interested in? I don't know, maybe it's not a paper, but maybe they're writing a book about like a fictional story about someone who goes to Niagara Falls and what's their experience like using the facts and information that they've learned. So just lots of different ways that we could differentiate learning for our students based upon their interests.
And then throw it in your classroom library too. Give them an extra little book to read. Moving on to brain breaks. Brain breaks, there are two specific types. We sort of broke them up into calming and energizing. I'm going to talk about calming first. I taught phys ed for 15 years before I came to the IU in this behavior role. So, we would have my view on my phys ed classes are always like, let's get this energy out within my classroom setting and get all that wiggles and jiggles and energy and yelling and running all around. So then they can go back to the classroom, really function at that in some of that in-seat behavior. One of the things I always did at the end of my classes, however, were to do some of these calming brain breaks. That way they're not, from octopus tag back to, ELA, and everyone's still talking about like the octopus, how they're running around and tagging people. So it's really important to incorporate a calming break. Maybe it's after recess, maybe it's after some sort of special like gym class. Some of the examples we have listed are mindfulness stretching, breathing exercise. We do a rainbow breath in social emotional learning a lot. We take our hands up here and we trace. We do that big rainbow breath. And it's just something that really just helps ground the students and ground even the whole class as a whole. Honestly, one of my favorite things to do is just to do absolutely nothing and sit in silence. Take away all that sensory, all the noises, all the lights, all the extra everything, and just sit in a moment of silence for a minute or two and just really reset the brain. The last two things we have listed there are coloring pages, just incorporating those students who may like art, and then even kinetic sand or Play-Doh and really incorporating those sensory things into a break. On the flip side, maybe, Amanda talked about, we do have times that we actually do have to sit in our seat and, maybe testing Friday. We have a spelling test, and then we have a grammar test, and then we have a math test, and then we have a vocabulary test. There's a lot of like in-seat behavior, kids, just sitting there, a little antsy maybe. And there's some things we can do as far as energizing breaks go. We can bust out exercise cards. It's low tech. If we want to get some tech involved, there's a slew of videos on Go Noodle. We'll incorporate a lot of these things into the Padlet. So if you're looking for some resources, make sure you check out our Padlet. My own kids love brain break racing videos. I know during COVID, or even just like right now, like a couple weeks ago during these like freezing cold, muddy, rainy, snowy times, they would just look up like a reindeer brain break video, and they would like run. They would jump over the snowbank or run and like dodge the snowball. So just like little things that we can incorporate within our day.
A couple of other things too. Students, if they were taking a self break, if they're like in the middle of an independent task or assessment, there are lots of different things they could do. Again, this is a resource from Sasha Long. Maybe they could put their head down for a couple of minutes, take those deep breaths, get a drink of water. If they could think about something else for a few minutes before getting back on task. Again, this would be something to really talk to the students about and make sure that they're understanding the expectations if they do need to take a self break, rather than engaging in any sort of disruptive behavior. But again, we'd also want to provide that reinforcement if we know like, oh, Joey really needs to take this break and I notice his head is down. Joey, thanks so much for taking a quick break and getting back on track. So we're recognizing the efforts that are put in from a student.
This next slide involves de-escalation. Again, as social emotional learning teacher, this is like probably probably one of my favorite slides. It's really just helping students identify, how they're feeling, what their body's telling them, their face is feeling red, maybe their muscles are tight. So I'm feeling angry. Now that I know that emotion and how I'm actually feeling, what do you need? And giving them those choices there at the bottom, you see like take a walk or sit at your desk and or deep breathe or whatever that choice might be. And really having them have ownership on under what that need is really important. And then I would also suggest practicing doing that in a regulated state as well. It's just giving them, the ability to regulate themselves and then also select. I think the biggest part is select what goes under that need. That's also one of the things that we'll include within the Padlet if you're looking for something as far as that goes with your classroom. The next part is our what to do when work is finished. This goes back to our piece, just, boredom increases those disruptive behaviors. You have a digital choice board, which Amanda will talk about in a minute here, but we also have sort of just like this laundry list of things to do, going back to making sure they know those procedures and routines for those things. And one of my favorites, as far as executive functioning goes, is this third picture here. It's the completion checklist. You have visuals, you have the actual pictures for those visual students, you have little check boxes to help them keep on track. And then just a reminder, like, what am I going to do once I am completed with my assignments? Is it, read from my book box or sit quietly in the beanbag chair and read my graphic novel, whatever that might be. It's just making sure there's no, I don't say downtime, but there's no like free reign. Like I'm just going to go around and bug all of my peers when they're supposed to be doing their spelling work. I have a set thing to do once my work is finished.
As far as what Jake was talking about, like motivation. So this really comes back to, I know we talk so much about relationship and really knowing our students. What are those things that are motivating to them? So some of our students might like those social motivators. So in anything social would be anything like a thumbs up, a fist bump, a smile, a wink, a high five, any of those kinds of things where we're engaging with the students or they're able to engage with others is a form of social reinforcement for a student. We did put in here the 2x10. It's a strategy I think we've talked about in the past, but it's really, there's a student in your class who you feel like, man, like, I don't know, like, I'm just not connecting with this student. Or if you decide to make a list of the students in your class and you're really stuck on someone and you can't think of, man, who was that last student? If you look at your list and see who that student is, that student would be a great candidate for this 2x10 because it would be telling us like, man, like I'm maybe not connecting so much with this student. I really need to spend a little bit of time getting to know them as a person. And I will tell you, one of my son's very, very favorite teachers is one he has had the best connection with. And that rapport really goes a long way. So I would never discredit the time you're spending. Getting to know your students and spending time with them. We have those tangible motivators or reinforcers. Maybe it's Pokemon cards or stickers or food if it's allowed, some sort of edible reinforcer. Maybe it is some of those like putty or Play-Doh or trinkets. Or again, we have an activity reinforcer like Jake was talking about, coloring or drawing. Maybe it's time on a computer or iPad, or sometimes extra recess, like for the whole class because of one student who's maybe a little stinker sometimes, like they're working towards extra recess for the class. That can really boost the morale with everybody in the class as well.
Yeah, really establishing that community. Our next part is just talking about reinforcers. Maybe you have a student that's on, a point system or behavior chart, and what are they going to want to work for? Not all students love going to the gym and hang out with Mr. Graham. Maybe they want a snack, or maybe they just want a free draw, or be the teacher helper. Really just incorporating something that they want to do, just give them more buy-in and more really just opportunities and the desire to show us those expected behaviors within the classroom setting. But
Another thing I wanted to show you, this is a really cool resource. This is called Magic School AI. Don't get worried. I know it's AI, but look on this. So this has, Magic School has all kinds of really cool teacher tools on it. And I found this, it's a choice board. It's called UDL, which is really the Universal Design for Learning. And it's really just a way of differentiating instruction to meet the needs of our students in different ways. And I just typed in literally personification and grade 3. And it popped up all of these different ways in which I could provide choice for my students about personification. So something certainly worth checking out. There's a lot of really cool resources on there. And with that, you're muted, Jake.
no, I said I'm muted. But yeah, with that, that's concludes our presentation on choice. Amanda is dropping the links to the Padlet as well as the survey. If you'd also like to, you can click on the survey, or you could scan your QR code and click the link to comment on the session and ask any questions that you might have. We're always more than happy to help or answer any questions that you all might have. And then don't forget, everyone who submits a response will be entered for a chance to win a prize in May. Maybe we'll give you a choice on what that might be too. So
Oh my gosh,
always
Jake.
incorporating our
And we're
strategies
right.
we're talking about.
I know, and we're right on time too. I was worried we were going over. What questions do you have? Does anybody have a question for us? Okay. Well, if no
Excellent
one,
job.
oh,
Excellent job, you two. Thank you.
thank you. Thanks for joining us, Dawn.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, if you do have any questions, certainly let us know. We are happy to answer those for you. You can send us an email, respond to the one I sent out about this meeting. So yeah, enjoy the rest of your day. Oh, thank you so much, Mrs. Mackerly. Glad to have you here. All
Great.
right.
Have a great day, everybody.
Well,
Enjoy
have a
the
good day.
sunshine.
See you later. Thanks.